In the last video, we set up binding within habit item between name and this input type equals text, and done and this button that goes around the habit, and between editing and this button here. There's also a way to set up binding between a value and a custom element, like a custom tag, like habit item. And there's a lot of reasons why you'd want to do this. You could imagine that you built your own type of little UI widget, like a slider or something, and you want to use it like an input. You need to be able to set up binding to your own custom tags as well. And let me show you why we kind of need to do that here. If I put a div here, do json.stringify, and I put our habits, so we can see all of our application data here. And now when I start interacting with this and changing some of the values, nothing in the original data is changing because the binding that we set up is all within habit item. And changing these values doesn't change the original values inside of habit group. So to fix that, it's actually really easy. We want to set up binding between the habits array and these two values that we're passing in here. But if I were to say something like bind equals habit, Imba's not going to know what exactly we're binding here. What are we binding to? Which internal values of habit item? And so the way we can tell it is that I want to bind name, and this refers to the name prop within habit item. So we use this colon to separate bind and then name, which is the value inside of habit item, and then here what we want to bind it to. And we actually want to bind it to habit.name. So let's try that. If I go to edit, now as I change this, you can see it's actually updating the name property on our original object. So it's changing the base data that is the data source of our application. Okay, now I've got a real easy challenge for you. Why don't you try setting up similar binding here, but instead of for name, do it for the done value. Okay, so all you have to do is put bind in front of this, and that's just saying that we're binding to the done prop within here, and we're binding it to habit.done. So whenever done changes here, it's going to set habit.done to that same value. And we can see that those update in our JSON that we're outputting. So then I can remove that JSON code just because that was for debugging purposes. And now we know how to bind into custom tags.